Hey, Supermom. We know every mom has a desire and the ability to be a supermom who does it all. So tune in to the Crunchy Supermom Show and let's design a holistic life that fits. Hey, Supermoms. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mandy.
We're the creators of the Crunchy Supermom blog. Today, we're going to talk about healthy eating and what that looks like for other supermoms like you who want to feed their families the highest quality food, but still not spend all your time in the kitchen or all of your budget on food. As usual, we don't want you to take notes, so we've already done that for you. To get the show notes for today's episode, go to crunchysupermom.com/healthy eating. We're going to link to everything we talk about in the show and provide you with an action plan so you can just sit back and listen stress-free. Just make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Now, Mandy, I know you have some funny eating adventures too, but right now I got to tell you, my little toddler finally decided she doesn't like avocados. She'd been eating 7 a week for it's been almost 2 years. She won't eat chicken anymore either. So she's basically just breastfeeding and licking butter to stay nourished. Then the older kids, they're obsessed with frozen kefir pops, and I just can't keep up with that.
Oh my goodness. It's so hard when they completely change all the preferences, and it's like you don't even have time to prepare yourself for it, and you'll have avocado stacks in the fridge ripening way too fast and trying to figure out what to do with them all.
Yes.
Oh my goodness. And my toddlers all have done that, and they all decide that nursing is so much better than actually eating, and it wears you out. It's always fun for moms because they want to nurse all night.
Oh my God, yeah.
But right now, my crazy food issue isn't all that dramatic. Mine decided that the homemade cereal I make is the only breakfast they want. And it's great because it's easier than like making a full breakfast or eggs or anything. But I like to rotate it because I'm a bit afraid they're going to get tired of it and they'll decide they don't ever want to eat it again. Like your toddler with
Oh,
avocados.
totally. It's not fair. It's not fair.
No, yeah, that's hard to deal with. And let's see what else is crazy. Okay, so I just started making raw milk yogurt again, and I started making it thick this time because I was using the grass-fed gelatin that we keep on hand. This has been like the biggest hit with them ever because they're so used to the runny raw milk yogurt,
Yeah.
and so, which is like basically a smoothie to eat with a spoon. But now they get what they call jelly yogurt. My 5-year-old calls it, and he'll poke it even because
That's
it's
cute.
um, but anyway, yeah, I'm sure all of our super moms are nodding, thinking of all their own crazy, silly food adventures because life gets crazy when you cook everything from scratch. But we have found some ways to make our lives in the kitchen both easy and healthy. But before we really dive in, I think it's worth mentioning our personal eating philosophy. We both really believe that the best diet for any family is one that's based on food that's minimally processed. And this can mean that it's sustainably raised and grown from high quality sources, or simply that it's minimally processed. It's different for each family. We also believe that no one diet style is right for every person. And basically, our thought is like to say that we just eat real food and then try to leave all of the dogma out of our discussions.
Absolutely. And in this episode, we are definitely talking all about food, but we're not going to be dishing out a bunch of advice about what you exactly should be eating. Instead, we're kind of going to just run you through how to improve some of the diet choices that you're making right now, maybe making choices to include more minimally processed foods, and also kind of talking about our personal stories and how we manage feeding our families without going broke, or more importantly, without going crazy. I know before I really settled into my supermom lifestyle, I'd spent almost all my time dealing with food, researching it, finding the best sources, physically purchasing it, or shopping online. And then there's the preparing the food just for storage or soaking it just so you can eat it, and then actually planning a meal and then preparing the meal. And also I'm forgetting you got to fit it into the budget too. I mean, I had to do all of those steps. And by the time I finished with that, I didn't even have time to wash the dishes from all the meals I was making. And I sure as heck didn't have extra money in the budget to hire some help.
Oh, the dishes, the cleanup in the kitchen was like what really forced me to look for a better way because I was spending literally all of my time in the kitchen and I was so tired of it. And that was kind of my breaking point. I mean, I was attempting, like, I had a newborn and I was trying to clean up the kitchen after what felt like the millionth snack of the day. And I had my newborn in the wrap nursing. And by the time I didn't even have the kitchen cleaned up, and my other kids were already back asking for more food. So my actual first step in getting the food organized was having a meal plan, and also only ordering or purchasing really for the month, besides some fresh things that I had to get weekly. How about you? Like, what was really your breaking point and your first step in the right direction?
Oh man. Well, I share the cleaning, keeping the kitchen clean issue with you. I have now that my kids are older, and you might have a trick like this too. I basically say, if you're hungry, I'm not cooking anything until I clean up the kitchen, so you can either help me or get out.
Yeah, there you go.
It sounds really mean, but I mean, honestly, they will come in there while I'm cleaning and ask for a snack, and I just can't handle it. So,
Right.
but actually what was worse for me, was really, I had this knowledge about, like what was a good food or what, like good sources, where to get it, and all these things that we should probably be eating to heal some of our health issues. And it was pretty expensive because I wasn't doing a lot of cost comparison at that point. So I had high quality food coming into my home. And Mandy, I'm going to cringe to admit this, and I know you're going to feel this pain. A lot of it was just going bad in my fridge or on my countertop, or I'd cook it and the meals were so tasteless that my family wouldn't even eat them. I mean, it was awful. Serious food waste. And I was so good at making these dips and dressings and smoothies and raw vegan foods that from, my previous life, so to speak, but I had absolutely no cooking skills. And my husband was just going nuts. He's like, you're spending all this money on this food and it tastes terrible. He's like, this tastes like a cow just walked into our house and like died on the table. And it did. I mean, you know how farm meat is definitely different from conventional when you're first shifting to that. It was sad. I was just wasting money, wasting food. Terrible.
That is bad.
Now, I have a hard time believing that you are ever in a state of disarray when it comes to food in your kitchen. So what in the world did you do to get your healthy eating situation under control at home?
Oh, it was bad. It really was bad.
You hide it well.
Yeah, I don't know. But I guess, I mean, I have a definite budget that I had to work with, and I still do. So I was just having to really examine what we were eating and make sure there was the quality I wanted, but also within that budget. And I mean, sometimes I wish even now we could eat better cuts of meat or more high quality fish, like wild caught salmon. I mean, we do eat it, but I limit it to a certain number of times a month. Because I try to balance it all, and I really not willing to, scrimp on quality. So this means that I have to find the most affordable and yet highest quality foods. So for example, for us, what this means is that we will rarely eat chicken breast. And instead, I will opt for the whole chicken, where I know I can get several meals, especially considering the broth and soups that I make from the bones. Another thing is that I also run a buying club here locally. So that means that families in our area can put our buying power together in order to get discounts. And this was really a huge help for our budget. And I would encourage everyone to seek out those options for themselves locally. And actually, we wrote a blog on this for saving money, and we included links to finding certain local buying clubs. So you can find that link that we will have in our show notes. How about you, Sarah? How did you save money, and how do you prioritize your food?
Well, we actually start with food first. So we structure, in home, of course, we structure our budget completely around food. So I know that's not possible for a lot of families, but I'm thankful we're able to do that. I mean, I still aim for a specific budget with food spending, but I don't really sacrifice quality for cost ever. I'll just take away from, some other budget area. We use like an electronic envelope system. So I'll just take something out of another area. And thankfully, I've been doing this long enough now that I don't have to do that real often. And same with you. And I think that's a spot where a lot of people get overwhelmed with the budget area. Is at first it's super duper expensive, but then once you get in the habit, you can kind of figure things out. And sometimes I'll sacrifice quality for convenience, but not by much. Like I'll buy pre-made tortillas that aren't sprouted and they're just made with flour, water, salt, and lard. mean, that's a convenience I'm willing to splurge on sometimes, like during those rough seasons, you know, like having a brand new baby, or my husband traveled a lot for the last 3 years. And I just, yeah, it's just like a convenient thing, but I'll still look for the minimal number of ingredients, and I won't buy anything that's like GMO or, I don't know, crazy oils or something. But
Yeah.
and one way I do try to save, we'll keep on budget basically, is to have a garbage week every month, where I basically try to use up anything that's frozen. Like if I cook a chicken, I'll immediately put a quarter of the shredded chicken into the freezer, just ready for an emergency meal. And sometimes I'll do like a double batch of, you know, like a lasagna or some kind of casserole, and I'll put that in the freezer. And then that last week of the month, if we haven't used those emergency meals, I basically pull them out and use them up. And that kind of stops the spending. And then I make weird things with whatever I can find in the fridge or the cupboard. And the kids are just used to it. Like I tell my husband and kids, I'm like, it's garbage week, no complaining, just like always, just, you know, we're eating it. You can either eat like leftover soup, or you can try this mystery meal that I just threw together.
Right.
They're all pretty used to it, so it works out fine. And I'm during that week, I'm planning my shopping for the next month, and I'm usually putting in orders and things. And throughout the month, I try to do 1 to 2 meatless dinners. And since we're here in Louisiana and the meat's really expensive, or I have to ship it all in, I've been trying to do more meatless lunches, or mixing like soaked sprouted quinoa with like shredded chicken in a soup, just to kind of stretch things a little bit. And that really helps me stay on budget. So, and now, at what point, or what did you do to kind of get yourself to a point where food felt easy? Like it kind of came naturally.
Well, I guess we practice, I don't know, time was one thing, I think. And also some of the things, just like what you said, not wasting the food, that was huge on our budget. Like you said, it was going bad, and I wasn't using everything the way I should have been. So that was one thing that made our, you know, budget, it made me must feel better budget wise. And really the key to that was ordering only one time a month, having our meal plan, sticking to it, eating only 3 meals a day, and getting rid of our snacks and really focusing on those 3 meals. I batch cook usually once a month for certain things, not like I don't try to do everything because that would be overwhelming for us.
Yeah.
And, no freezer space either for that. So I just
glassware.
Yeah, exactly. I make double batches of food, like you said, same thing. So you can have freezer meals of backup, which is a huge, huge relief. If you don't have that there, you're just in trouble. And I plan for leftovers often, so I can have basically like a night off. And leftovers aren't necessarily everyone's favorite, but it's really nice to not have to worry about dinner every single night. And for lunches, we do a lot of salads and bone broth soups, so they're both very nutritious and also really affordable and not complicated to put together. On Sundays, usually we will prep vegetables and salads for the week, and it doesn't last all week. I shoot for salads at the beginning of the week especially, but that's what we do just to be prepared, and that really helps us stay focused. If I miss that on Sunday, it is hard to catch up during the week for me. And I can tell how much the prep really, and the sticking to the plan really helps me. And do you think the planning has been one of the key things for you too, like to make healthy eating easy?
Oh, totally. And more, and like you said, it's when you tell someone like meal planning, I mean, that pulls it together, your budget and your sanity saving. And for me, I was learning how to cook with my meal plans, and because I paid for a service. But I think the biggest thing was like keeping with the routine. Once I created it, just knowing like I need to stick with it, right? I knew it worked the week that I did it perfectly, so I needed to do it every single week. And that's really, that's the biggest thing, in addition to just having like a meal plan. And it was a huge transition for me. You were actually one of the biggest reasons that I switched from, like being on a vegan vegetarian diet for that point when I met you, that I had been mostly vegetarian. And it was a hard transition for me, and it took a while, actually, quite a few years. And the biggest thing was stumbling onto a meal planning service. And some of the early meal planning services I tried, they had some cooking to them, like more than I was used to, but they weren't completely whole food based. But within a few months of just using them, I was getting better at using like the animal products. I realized like you can't just take a roast, like a cut of beef, and throw it in the oven and like pull it out and eat it. You have to like give it something to make it juicy and have flavor.
Right.
And I didn't even know those basics. And once I kind of got used to learning how to cook a little bit, I tried some whole food based meal planning services. I mean, I've tried around 6 or 8 at that. I don't know, probably more now, but 6 or 8 that I really kind of juggled. And I've been using Real Plans now for 3 years. And I'll link to the blog post I wrote on all of these services in our show notes. I mean, I really think that having a meal plan was critical for me to make the transition, and even now just to like stick with it and not sacrifice all of my time. And a lot of people shake their head when I say, pay for a meal planning service. They just see the expense of the service, but it really organizes your overall budget spending. I mean, I can make sure that we don't have more than 1 to 2 higher price meals on the plan for each week. And rotate in a lot of the lower price meals that we love into the month. And that just kind of evens out our budget over the whole, 4 weeks. And I know that I've made up the cost of the meal planning service just by doing this and sticking with it. There's one situation where it's going to feel really painful budget-wise is when you first make that transition, if you're eating like a sad or standard American diet and then switching to like home-cooked food. It's going to be kind of expensive to get set up, but the more you do it, then, you'll just be able to adjust the meals and figure out what fits in your budget and what doesn't. Because like you said, like if good fish isn't available in your area, you're going to pay a lot for it. So you shouldn't have it on your budget or on your meal plan every week. So,
right,
but
exactly.
it takes time, consistency and just sticking with it when you know that it works. So
that's true. Yeah. Time, give it time.
Absolutely. And like we like to say around here is, try on what Mandy and I do and then make adjustments to see what fits for you. And, food is something we're going to talk about all the time. We talk about it at home. We talk about it as a business. We're trying to always perfect the routines. And we hear from a lot of supermoms that providing healthy food for your family is a huge stressor. And through the years, we've learned that having a plan is just part of that equation. And then learning how to adjust the plan for the season of your life is just as important. And learning how to do this will end the dread and that scramble you have for the meals that you're making when your family's at your feet screaming at you for food at dinner time. So let's outline like our favorite steps here for our listeners, like what they could do. My favorite trick, so to speak, is to say when you're making any kind of food change of any kind, do a pantry eat down or pare down the pantry, whatever you want to call it. So you're going to use up everything you have on hand while you work out your meal plan. And I like this step because it can help you stockpile some of the money that you would normally be spending. And you can use it towards your very first shopping trip, because that's the scary one. That's where you're going to be spending a little bit more than you're used to. And if you don't have anything in your pantry that other than like hamburger helper or something, then skip to step 2. So, you can make some weird meals like protein plus a sauce and some spices. That's an actual meal right there.
You'd be surprised what you'll find in your own pantry, like how long you can go, or at least I was,
Yeah, totally. And what would you say step 2 is?
Again, the meal plan, find one that really works for you and, choose the foods that work with your eating style, whatever, if you have any kind of health needs that you need to address with the diet, find one that works with that. And also, of course, your budget. And it can be really hard to get the meal plan situated into where it really works for you. But once you do, it's totally worth it. Even if you don't have an online, I started out and I wasn't using one that was online at all. I got actually folders and printed out my favorite recipes.
Wow.
I still have them. Yes, they're still a mess. I need to put them into Real Plans for sure. And one of the keys is, starting out slowly. Don't try to modify or make everything new at first. Go really with some of the standards that you're used to, because it will feel overwhelming if everything is new. It's so much easier to cook a recipe that you're familiar with than something brand new.
Right.
I think. And some of the meal planning services actually have a money back guarantee or like a short free trial period. And it's really worth it to try one. And some of the ones I think that you have listed before is like the Fresh 20 and Frugal Real Plans.
Yeah. And we can link to those in the show notes for sure. They're pretty
Yeah,
simple.
that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned this earlier, like, or you order once a month or shop once a month kind of thing. I mean, obviously not for fresh stuff. You have to get
Right.
that. For me, I do it twice a week now, but ordering and shopping according to the meal plan and kind of minimizing how many trips you're making or how many orders you're placing. Like for both of us, I know we use Vitacost and I use Thrive Market. And I'm using both now, and they save a lot of money, especially when they have like their discounts or coupons or whatever. And I kind of put in a monthly order for dry goods from both of those companies. And then that just leaves me to find like my animal products and fresh produce. And I get the fresh produce every 2 weeks here in my local co-op. And I bet you have a different kind of routine with that. But simply getting into a routine with the shopping can help you stay on track with the meal planning, and it helps with your budget because you've got all the food you need for 7 days or 10 days or however much on hand, and you know how much you spent, and it's really nice to kind of stay with that versus like showing up at the store, leaving with a cart full of like $400 for the groceries and saying, okay, now what do I do with all this? And then I bet you end up making 2 or 3 more trips throughout the week too. So
Yeah, it's true. And you spend so much more if you, at least I do, I spend so much more if I just shop, nonstop. It's compared to ordering once a month or even twice a month, whatever works, even if you go once a week, if you just commit to, I'm not going to just go and spend money because there's always extra things that you pick up and it can just destroy your budget.
totally. And when I was living there in North Carolina by you, I use that Harris Teeter online ordering where you drive up and pick it up.
Uh-huh.
Hilarious. Like it seemed, all these women were like, oh, that's so expensive. It was like, it was like bling bling, but really,
Right, yeah.
I was spending like half as much as they were going and picking it up through the drive-through because I knew exactly what I needed and I ordered it online, and I did not walk in that store and buy any impulse purchases whatsoever. And I never shop what's on sale. I mean,
Right.
I know it would be great to, but you can't if you follow the meal plan. And ultimately, I swear that it evens out. But
I think so. And I totally agree because, and for me online too, when I'm looking I can see the total in my cart. And if I know I need to adjust something in order to get it back within my budget, I can. And I never do that if I'm walking around the grocery store, especially, with 4 kids in tow. You're not going to be like, let me just put that back, because I can't afford it. You're just like, I don't care anymore.
yeah,
I'm just going to buy it and suffer later. So yeah, it's huge to do that for me, budget wise and time wise.
Oh, totally. Yeah. And, the other thing you mentioned, like step 4 for us would be that batch cooking day. And you mentioned you do yours like on a Sunday. And I don't like to use family time for that, like when my husband's home. So I actually do it on Friday during our chore day. And I know for me, that's like roasting a couple of chickens in the oven or in the Instant Pot and then like shredding it and putting it in the fridge and freezer. Because I call that emergency protein.
Yeah.
And then, any of the heartier vegetables that you can do, like you said, for the salads. Like I just learned, I learned it, but I've just been implementing it where you can actually like cut up carrots and put them in water and they'll last a lot longer and they're ready to eat. I'd always just done like you do, like a couple's days worth basically.
Right.
So, but if you can pull out some prepared frozen like meat or protein of any kind, like beans that you've par cooked or par cooking. Another thing I learned in the last year is where you cook them like halfway. So they're cooked, but they're not going to get mushy if you reheat them. And then just freeze them. They're great. Like you can just stick them, the container in like hot water and thaw them out and throw them in your soup or something and they'll be perfect. So these little things, I consider that batch cooking. So I throw all that in together and, I don't know, baking bread if you're making it homemade, or a dense muffin of some kind, like portable. I call that portable food.
Yeah.
Those things I do on my batch day. Do you do anything like different on batch day?
I do. I have a couple different, I guess, what I would consider batch days. So Fridays too, I do pretty much all of my baking, and I found that it saves a lot of time if I just go from one thing to the next that I know that we need. So I pretty much always will do one batch of bread for the week on Fridays. Sometimes we don't eat it and I don't need to, but if I make like our pizza dough, because we have pizza night, and so I have that, and then I have bread, and I do that all on Fridays to get it ready. That just saves like a lot of cleanup, because I can just go from one to the next, even in my mixing bowl, without having to scrub everything down, clean the kitchen up with the flour, where I've ground it and everything, if I just do that at once. So that's like my baking batch day. And then on Sundays, I pretty much have like a salad prep day or things like that. The lunches basically for the week prep.
Okay.
And then I think once a month I will do the big like protein batch cooking, or I make salad dressings usually for the month, things like that I will do. So it's kind of like divided up. Again, it's all about, I think, what works for your family and the season of life that you're in. I didn't always do that when I had a newborn. I couldn't do that, but I did it differently, but still just the plan.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So do you this is random. Do you freeze your bread if you guys don't eat it and then just use it anyway?
I will. Or I just put it in the fridge and it actually lasts in this bag that I have, this reusable bag. It has like a plastic kind of liner, because the ones without it, it would just dry out completely.
Okay.
And
you might have to link to that in the show notes, because I'm interested.
Yeah. It'll last. Like the last, I didn't make any last weekend, so I had bread in the fridge for 2 weeks, like from one batch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, that makes it a lot better, because we don't go through a lot of bread. I mean, we have a few less kids than you do, and we don't eat a lot of sandwiches, but it'd be nice to extend the life of my bread and not have to use make French toast every Sunday and use up the whole loaf of bread.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that would be hard. It does freeze well, so I do freeze it too.
Okay, we'll have to try it. But anyway, I mean, ultimately what we're saying is you got to try things. Try some of the things we're suggesting. And like we said, we're going to type this up for you in the show notes, and we're going to give you an action plan. And we highly recommend just like taking a look at what we've suggested, try it out, and then make some changes so that you can do something that works for you, and then just stick with it. I mean, there is nothing more painful than cleaning up the mess that happens when you steer away from the routine that you already know works for you. And I mean, if you just did what you know works and stuck with it, it wouldn't be such a mess. I don't know. Like, there's nothing worse than that day after you're like, oh, I'll just give myself a day off. I'll catch up tomorrow. And then tomorrow you're the one sick in bed, and it just keeps spiraling out of control. So these are some of our best tips, and we hope they can help you get started on a healthy eating journey that really works for you and your family. And again, go to crunchysupermom.com/healthy eating to get that packet of stuff that we've put together for you. And we're available to answer your questions in our private Facebook group. And we're going to give you an invitation to that in the show notes. Again, crunchysupermom.com/healthy eating. You're going to love what we've put together. So